So, good afternoon and welcome to our meeting. If you guys will notice, I have the chat pulled up, and that's because I'm going to start with some general information about what we know coming for the DBQ in the chat, okay? And we're going to go over each of the things, and then we're going to talk about kind of what I've posted, and then we'll talk about what I've posted for the week and etc. So the first thing in this chat right here, I guess I'm going to make this big so we can see all of it. So general things that we do know about the test coming up on Thursday. Number one, I don't care if you are on your phone. I don't care if you are on an iPad. I do not care if you are on a desktop or a laptop. You need to use Chrome for your browser. That's the number one thing. Some people were like, oh, I'll use Safari. No, use Chrome. You can use Safari to, I don't know, have a Google Doc open, but use Chrome for actually submitting your AP test. They have made that very clear that is the browser that the fewest number of students have had issues with in terms of testing, okay? Second thing we know, your prompt could be over like 1750 to 1900, which is units 5 and 6, or it could be from 1450 to 1900, right? It could be over a very broad amount of years. We don't know for certain, okay? The third thing is you might have the exact same prompt as other people do, but you might have completely different documents. So just know that College Board is really literally trying to keep kids from cheating in regards to this. So not only that, in terms of that, we do know the question will start out with evaluate the extent to which, right, whatever, and then they'll have the question. Based off of what we saw or heard back from students in AP Euro and AP US, is there were at least 4 prompts, okay? And again, there were 4 prompts, but some kids had the same prompt but different documents. So really, it's kind of like there are 6 or 7 different prompts, right? If you have different documents. We know that the prompts were either really easy / over very familiar topics. Okay, so I think AP Euro is where they said that the prompts were really easy, but the documents were a little more difficult. Vice versa, AP US, they said that the prompt was kind of difficult, but they had easy documents, okay? So generally speaking, that's something to keep in mind. And then, again, number 7, like same prompts. I have that twice on there. I should probably delete that. And then number 8, after the test is done, okay, do not post on any sort of social media. Don't post a meme about the prompt or the documents. Don't do anything until a solid 24 hours after the exam. If you want, you can message me on Remind or send me an email like, hey, this is what the prompt was and these were our documents, or hey, this is how I feel I did. Like, give me a I might even send out a Remind message going, how'd you guys feel? I want to know. But truly, do not post on your social media anything, because College Board is still looking for people. Apparently, they may have set up like things on Reddit for and then kids like got caught because they were planning on participating in a Reddit cheating thing. I don't know. That's the rumor. Just don't do it, right? Don't be silly about that, because you don't want to be busted for cheating. And then the same thing, like, I mean, technically there's no way they can force you to, keep from calling a friend. But again, unless you have the exact same documents and the exact same prompt, it's not gonna help you. And I will say this: don't screenshot the documents. Okay. If you secretly want to take a picture of them and send them to me, I'm not going to say no, but at the same time, you technically shouldn't, and I think that's in their oath not to do that. But you can tell me about the prompt or the topic of the prompt. Just again, privately messaging me is not the same thing as going on your social media. So for instance, that Portuguese, the Portuguese traders DBQ that I did the example video over with you guys last year. As soon as the AP test was getting out, we saw Twitter explode with all of these memes of what's in the box? What's the significance of the box? Because kids didn't get that document. They didn't understand the document of the box or how to use it. So just don't do that. Don't tweet something. They do look, and they do, if they can figure out who you are based off your name or your school anywhere through. They literally like go data mining, looking for kids' names and their schools to basically suspend their tests. So don't do that, right? That's just a general common sense thing about the test for Thursday. The second thing I wanted to go over with you guys is this. So this is what I posted this week, right, about online learning. You only have one assignment, and it's the required final grade. I'll go to that in a second. This is most important, right? If you have any friends in my class, encourage them to get their work turned in to me, because I literally have some kids sitting at a 0 for the 6 weeks. I have several kids who are failing for the 6 weeks. I just need stuff turned in. I'm not taking off points for late. I'm taking off points if it's completed or not. I'm grading it, right? If you get something wrong, I'm going to give you feedback on it. But one of the things, like for instance, the AP demo and proof of life, I got people that gave me their proof of life photo, but they forgot to give me the AP demo completed photo. So I put in a 50, and then you can fix that to a 100. But please make sure you have everything turned in that's required to be turned in, and make sure your friends have stuff turned in. So that said, the assignment that's really due Wednesday, because I want it done before the AP test, is numbers. If you're taking the AP test, and I think everyone that's in this particular class that is currently on the video, you guys all are. So you are doing just numbers 1 through 10. Unless you really want to do 11 through 20, right? And you want to reflect about your learning and give me some feedback, but you don't have to. I'm really only requiring you to do 1 through 10. If you are not planning on taking the AP exam, you're doing 11 through 20 for me. So you're doing that on either Google Doc or presentation, or as a PDF, and you're submitting that. This is your final daily grade for the 6 weeks, okay? So that is there. Again, you have to do 1 through 10. You don't have to do 11 through 20 if you are taking the AP exam. And if you are not taking the AP exam, you have to do 11 through 20 as your final grade. And then the last thing I want to talk about is a reminder. You guys can print the resource that I provided for you, the study guide to end all study guides. To rule all study guides, really. And then if you want resources, right, review videos, review reading, there's that. I don't know if you guys knew this, but Heimler is doing live reviews on YouTube at 2 p.m. He did it yesterday. He did it today. He's doing it tomorrow. So as well. So you guys are welcome to watch him if you like him. On Thursday, under conference, so you'll click on the conference at 11:30. I'm going to be doing like one last pep talk. I'm going to be wearing our class shirt. I'm going to be wearing my cactus earrings. Prickle Rick is going to make an appearance in the video. It's basically one last, hey, let's review and let's talk about, like, just reminders. I believe in you guys, and reminder that this one test on one day doesn't define you, and then what happened, what to do if, for whatever reason, there's a screw up with your submission. So I'll go over that all on Thursday. And so again, that's under conferences. It's at 11:30. My biggest thing is please make sure you get a good night's sleep the night before the test, and that you eat something before you start taking the test between 12:30 and 1, right? 1 o'clock is when the exam actually starts, but you have to be logging in at 12:30. And you guys should have gotten your emailed ticket today. If you didn't, it will be in your AP classroom, but you should have gotten your e-ticket today in your email. And again, I'll send out an email message to everybody that talks about where it might be. So I know some people had it set to their Gmail, and it went under the promotions tab because Gmail has 3 different tabs, and sometimes it gets sorted into other places. And I know one student said that they already messaged me and said, "Hey, Ms. Swegler, just as a heads up, I found the e-ticket in my spam today." So places to look for your e-ticket for your email. The other thing I posted yesterday was please pay attention. So your assignments due Wednesday. I already talked about that. Again, I'm going to be contacting parents about grades. If you get a 0 for this 6 weeks, you're going to make your overall semester fail. And you're not going to pass second semester. You might have to redo second semester for world history, as a heads up. This is important, number 4. So this is a DBQ planning sheet. So if you're someone who wants a kind of planning sheet to use on the day of the AP exam, I put one together for you. Whoa. That zoomed in really big, but that's okay. It'll be fine. So this is the AP planning sheet that I kind of put together for y'all to use if you want. So you can either print this or you can just make your own version of it, right? But here's your steps, right? So step 1 through 4. 1 is what is the prompt asking me about, right? What skill do I think it's asking? Does it clearly tell me a skill? Here's where you take notes over the documents, like a brief summary, what theme, right, you think it fits under. If you have any time for HAP analysis, right, jot that down. Then figure out your arguments. And I even gave an example, right, an economic impact of the New World. So this is literally pulled from the DBQ argument example that I did. I told someone earlier today, if you want, you can print this as an example of how to set up paragraphs, right? Now, clearly, do you need to put in brackets, identification, or description of evidence?
No.
Negative, ghostwriter. But I set this up so you guys had an example. But if you want to print this or even copy it down so you have an example in front of you the day of the exam, I mean, go for it, man. Anything that helps you figure out how to write your essay better the day of the AP exam is a good thing, right? So back to this, right? Argument 1, think of it thematically, because I think that'll make it easier. Now, if you think you've clearly identified a specific thing, right, then you don't have to fit the themes, use a theme thing. But if themes are easier for you, right, the documents are going to fit the themes. So there's that. So which documents are you going to use to support your argument? Can you think of any outside evidence that helps prove your argument as well that goes with those things? Contextualization and thesis. Now, I think I said this last week, and if I didn't, I apologize. But here's the deal, guys. If you struggle with contextualization, right, don't write it. Start your essay with a thesis statement, and then immediately start your body paragraphs, right? If you feel like you struggle with contextualization, on a 10-point rubric, contextualization is 1 point, unicorn point is 1 point. You can earn 8 points out of the 10 without doing contextualization or the unicorn point. So you don't need to do contextualization. That said, later on when I'm going over big topics that I think could be asked for the AP test, if you want to write out early, ahead of time, might be smart, possible contextualizations for big topics.
Yes, sir.
And you want to send them to me and go, would I get credit for contextualization? Right? I mean, this is if you have time. I don't know what your schedules look like 2 days before the AP exam. But if you want to, and I can give you feedback, and then you have them already written for the day of the AP exam,
I'll be sending you mine.
That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. The second page is literally just a reminder of the rubric, right? This is just a reminder of an outline, okay? I would try to use all of the documents at least once, right? Try to use all 5. Do the HAP analysis for at least 3 of them. And I will say this, not so much with this class, but some people in the other classes, what I saw people making mistakes on for the HAP analysis is they correctly did either historical context or audience or purpose, but what gets you that second point is being able to say that the historical context or the audience helps prove the argument of economic imperialism because of blank, right? So the document helps prove economic imperialism. The audience of who this is for is it's for the Belgian people back in Europe, proving that they are how about politically stronger than the Africans, because the audience is this is for the Belgian people to see that they are superior over the Congolese that they are ruling, and it's a pride thing. It's a national pride that we have a better military, we have a better ability to make them do what we want, right? So this right here, include the why. How does this help prove my argument? How does me knowing the audience or the historical context or the purpose, how does that help prove my argument? You get 1 point just for correctly doing purpose or historical context or audience or point of view 1 time, but to get the second point, you have to do it for 2 documents, and you have to do this helps prove my argument of economic imperialism, political, whatever your arguments are, right? You have to be able to prove the why. So include your why. So this right here, this third page, right? So if you wanted to print the first page just as a blank thing, so you can scribble all over it and then do pages 2 and 3 back to back, this is just a reminder for HAP analysis. Here are other verbs you can use for your to say said, right? The document acknowledges, or the document explains, or the document the author proposes or reveals, whatever it is. So this right here, this third page, is just a review, and it also has sentence stems for your HAP analysis. So you can use any of these sentence stems, right? So if you look at this one, there's lots of different options for purpose: persuade, inform, convince, celebrate, expose, reassure, whatever. There's lots of things, right? You can use for sentence stems. You will not get in trouble for using sentence stems. As a heads up, they have said that. So this is under the announcements. It's number 4 under the announcements, called Pay Attention. Then the other thing I posted on here I think is kind of important. If you have Instagram, there's a social studies teacher where she's posted a couple of possible prompts along with answers for reviewing. So you might want to look up her particular Insta. That said, she teaches more than just AP World, so be prepared to see other stuff other than AP World on her Instagram. So there is this announcement on here. What else am I forgetting? I think that's the big things from here. Oh yeah, I said you can print this or copy paste it into a doc and print it. That's fine. Or if you want to write it out, you can. Just as a review, this is the OneSource resource. If you want to watch videos, if you want to do vocab, that's a review place. And then there's the one study guide to rule them all as well that you guys can print. And again, the only risk you run with that, right, is that if you print those, is you might spend too much time trying to skim through those rather than just writing what you know and using the documents to answer things. So that is this part. The next thing that I wanted to go over with you is using the chat is possible prompts and talk about possible contextualization. Okay, so this is a list I came up with on my own about possible topics for prompts. Okay, so I'm going to say this. I could be wrong, but I don't think they're going to use a Unit 1 or 2 DBQ. Okay, but in case they do, this is what it would be over. Spread of religion, right? So, for instance, Buddhism spreading from India to China to Southeast Asia, aka what we would know as Indonesia, right? We know Hinduism also spreads out to Indonesia. We know in the later years, so we're talking about early spread, later on, the major religion that's going to transform and become then the dominant religion is going to be Islam, with the arrival of those Islamic merchants on the Indian Ocean trade. We know that Christianity will eventually be introduced when the Dutch and the Spanish and the Portuguese come into play. Now, it's not to say that Christianity had never been introduced into South Asia or Southeast Asia before. Um, Historically speaking, right, we know that there were saints that made their way all the way out to India. St. Thomas, one of the apostles, made it all the way out to India. But, right, it didn't take hold because Buddhism and Hinduism were so much stronger there. But when even the British, take over India for imperialism, they bring in missionaries and they teach and continue to have there is now a Christian presence within India, as well as Pakistan, although very little in Pakistan. But so syncretism, spread of religion, that might be a really big one. If they talk about empires, it's most likely going to be the Mongols. If it's going to be a Mongol, it might be a Mongol DBQ. I kind of doubt it, but it could be. And in terms of the biggest thing, Unit 2 was all about the trade, right? It's all about that trade. More money. Sorry. But we're talking about the land Silk Road. We are talking about the Indian Ocean Silk Road. We are talking about the gold salt trade routes in Africa, the impact of those trades. So it could be cultural impacts, spread of religion. It could be economic impact. It could be technological, right? The spread of new technologies. So, for instance, from China, we know we had gunpowder spread. We had the spread of, it's technically spread of disease, right, out of China, the bubonic plague. We know we have the spread of porcelain, silk. We know we have the spread of different art, animals, spices, Spice Islands, aka Indonesia. We know, think about your map, right? Your trade map. That's the big impact. Now, contextualization, because we haven't really. I did a Unit 0. Mrs. Long and I both did a Unit 0. So I know, for instance, Noah and Ethan, that's been quite some time. And Noah, you weren't in my class when I did the Unit 0. But for that, right, you were thinking about, okay, it's going to be, if they're having me contextualize these 2 units that are at the very beginning of the school year, I'm thinking about how people have bartered throughout all of history, right? Maybe it began as a barter system and exchange of goods for other things, but that develops into economics becoming a key component of civilization and the developments of civilization and the development of trade routes. So you could talk about even the early Silk Roads within the Roman and the Persian Empire, because all of those caravanserai, aka those like pit stops, right, really developed in Persia. That's where they began. Eventually, they get spread out all the way to China, right? Because we want safe places for people to stop at night. / also, we just don't want to keep traveling all the time. We need safe places. But also, they really started in Persia. Like we have, there's so many along what was called the Royal Road of the Persian Empire, where they built those caravanserai to help instigate trade, because the Persians were one of the first major groups. And then we know the Romans were trading with the Chinese. Like, we have actual proof of that. So trade begins a long time. It's an instinctual. I want things that I can't otherwise get from my local market, right? I want stuff that especially luxury goods, right? We want to look fancy, and if we have the money for it, then why not spend the money for it? So Yoshi, does that help? I know you were the one that sent me a message about. Does that help with contextualization for units 1 and 2?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And I've been looking at the study guides and watching a lot of videos, and really, I don't think we'll have necessarily on 1200 stuff.
Yeah, neither do I. I mean, if we do, I'll be surprised. The other thing is, you guys could do contextualization from going from like in the future, looking backwards. That is an option. It's going to be a harder option because that's not how we have taught you all here, but you could do that. And some of you are gifted writers enough to do that. Units. Yes.
So basically I came here really quick, but I just came here to tell about the A-push exam.
Yes.
You probably already know about it.
No, none of my former students have messaged me. None of them.
Okay, so I think there's 3 AP prompts, but they were thematic exams. Thematic prompts.
I'm sorry, what? What? You just made my day. They were what? Types? I'm sorry. That's what Mrs. Long and I have been predicting, like all year long. That's awesome.
Euro wasn't.
Euro wasn't?
Yeah. I heard it was
Napoleon.
This was like mine specifically. Am I allowed to tell you? Or?
You're allowed to tell me now. Yeah, it's been enough time.
It was just like the development of slavery from 1784 to 1784 all the way till 1850. So like almost Civil War. So that's like a big gap for U.S. history.
Yeah. So it could be that. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you, Ethan. We appreciate you sharing that information.
Sure.
Have a good time wherever you're about to leave.
I have to go.
Okay, bye. All right. Unit 3 and 4. That was really helpful to hear from Ethan. I'm really glad he popped in. Units 3 and 4. So land-based empires, again, the fact that we've had empires for a long time, it's nothing new. Technically, the Egyptians were empires, like the ancient Egyptians, right? The Hittite Empire, we've had ancient empires, we have classical empires. You need to know that they are marked by having a large organized government. What we would use the higher vocab word would be bureaucracy, right? And that is a word, by the way, if you were worried about your spelling, because I'm also sometimes a very terrible speller, don't worry about it, because we don't care. As AP readers, if we can get the gist, we're good. Don't worry about your spelling. But there's large empires, large government systems, a taxation system set up. There's always a large standing military. There's usually a common culture, be it language or art, architecture. There is monumental architecture being built by empires, and that's true of the Mughals, the Safavids, and the Ottomans. Religion is a big part of that, shared religion. I don't think they're going to ask about Russians because that's just too European, and honestly, no one cares. No one cares about Russia in AP World until really units 7, 8, and 9 when communism comes to the stage. It's just not a big part of AP World. Let's see here. I don't think they're going to really ask a land-based empire, but if they do, those are some of the things you could talk about. I think the bigger topics are the maritime empires. Now, last year, again, they did ask a Portuguese Indian Ocean question, right? So that was literally last year's AP exam. I don't really see that happening again, but it could be Columbian Exchange, it could be the Atlantic slave trade, it could be about the triangle trade between the New World and the Old World, and the exchange of goods, it could be new technologies, it could be the new social class systems that develop, so that would be definitely know that triangle, the Incomedia system, right, the casta system, That's important to know in the new world. So those are possible topics from units 3 and 4. Possible topics, units 5 and 6. Political revolutions. So let's talk about contextualization for that. You get to talk about the Enlightenment and the philosophers and the new ideas and how it inspires some of those political revolutions. If it is talking about the Industrial Revolution, you can either talk about the agricultural revolution, or you can even talk about the scientific revolution, in that we want to push what we know and we want to experiment and we want to learn. Now remember, it's the people that are already well educated that are doing that, but you have that for contextualization. So Industrial Revolution, it'll be social impact or economical impact or political impact. All of these are possible things for Industrial Revolution. And if you get an imperialism prompt, for the love of God, please talk about the Industrial Revolution and the search for new resources to power and to continue to be able to pump out like cotton and really textiles, which is why they went for cotton in India. That's why they went to other places for those goods, right? You want to include that in your contextualization if it's imperialism. Seriously, I mean, if it is a second industrial revolution prompt, then you can use the first industrial revolution as your contextualization. But really, the easiest contextualization you can do for an imperialism DBQ is to talk about the Industrial Revolution and why it helped begin imperialism. I think that should be the easiest thing for you guys to knock out of the park in terms of topics with the essays. I feel like I have talked a lot. This is your time for you guys to ask me any questions that you want, any thoughts, any concerns about DBQ that you wanna throw my way.
Can I say something about submitting and stuff?
Yes, please do.
Okay, so I had my AP test yesterday.
Yes.
And I know that a lot of people might want to write some stuff down and stuff like that, but still have a faster way to turn it in. So what I did was, math questions, I wrote everything down on a piece of paper, include your ID and your initials at the top, and I took a picture on my phone, even though I had my laptop, and I just took the picture and put it into Google Docs and saved that as a PDF, and it was a lot faster for me instead of trying to type everything out and stuff like that.
Okay, that's good to know. I think for some people it's going to be faster to type. And I will say this, I think it is far easier to copy paste and submit your essays since it's an essay, one singular essay, than I think it is to try to save it as a text file. That's my personal opinion. Take it or leave it. But that's my personal opinion about that for that. Anyone else want to ask a question? Throw out a curiosity thing? Yes, Noah.
For the body paragraphs, for the piece of evidence beyond the documents, is it one or two per paragraph?
So, okay, let me put it this way. I think any body paragraph should have at least 2 documents, right, that you've grouped together. It is very rare that they will give you only one document that doesn't have any sort of thematic connection to any of the others, okay? I say thematic connection because it could have a thematic connection that is the same, but one shows the other side of the argument. Does that make sense? But you should be able to group them together as a economic impact or a political impact or whatever. Now, when you're using the documents as evidence, right, this is where you're summarizing them to prove whatever the argument is, economic impact, political impact, whatever. Even if it's the opposite side, right, You are going to group those documents together. And again, this is why I said if you want to print off that version, that sample that I gave you guys about the Atlantic slave trade prompt, you can use that as a guide to see how I paired two documents together and brought in outside evidence and did my HAP analysis, right? Now, that body paragraph only got me 2 points for regular evidence. It gave me 1 point for outside evidence. And it gave me 1 point for HAP analysis. It did not give me the second point of HAP analysis because I did not analyze document 5. I only analyzed document 1. So, I mean, but you can get 4 points or 5 points potentially in one body paragraph. And if you can get thesis, right? Literally, if you only get a thesis statement and you can do what I did in that body paragraph, that's 5 out of 10 points. You are in a really solid place if you are getting 5 points out of 10. It would make me feel better if people got like 6 or 7. And even like the people who are getting like 3 or 4, the national average last year was 2.3 or 2.5 at most for scoring a 3 or 4 or 5. Like, if you guys can get 5, 6, 7 points, or even 3 or 4 points, you guys are in a solid position. And I will say this, 7th block, a lot of the essays I graded were fantastic. They really were. I didn't give tons and tons of feedback because, again, I have a lot of you to grade for essays. But I did try to give everybody back a little bit of feedback. If you go and look at your comments on your quiz, you should be able to see comments that I left you. And if you can't, just message me and I'll send it to you. I think people said it was easier to see the feedback on an actual computer and not on the phone to access the comments on that. Yes, Noah, did you have another question?
Oh, yeah. I understand how to incorporate the documents, but on the one-stop review, it said that there had to be 2 pieces of evidence beyond the documents. I was a little confused if it was like 2 total or 2 per paragraph.
Oh, 2 total outside pieces of evidence. So you could have 1 piece of outside evidence in one body paragraph and the other in the second body paragraph. And remember, whatever you use for your outside evidence cannot be the same stuff that you used in contextualization. It has to be different. It has to be. They don't allow you to do what they call double dipping. So whatever you do for contextualization will not count as outside evidence.
All right.
Yeah. Anyone else from my silent musketeers down at the bottom?
Oh yeah, I have a question.
Nope. Okay. Daniel, I think I heard your voice first, so go ahead. I think what you feel the weakest in for your knowledge. Like, whatever you feel you don't know the best, that's what you review over. The same thing, like, you don't have to print that entire review. You can just print the stuff that you're like, I know I'm weak in this knowledge area. And then again, like, that the review, the one review to rule them all, it doesn't have tons of specific evidence. It's just this massive amount of information, right? I think, honestly, when I was asking you guys to do your spice charts and to give me specific pieces of evidence, you guys were doing that, and you have better spice charts to have in front of you than that huge, massive review. It's up to you what you have in front of you the day of the exam. And that's why I'm asking you to think about what are you going to have in front of you. Because if you're like, oh, I'm going to have my notebook, and I'm going to have this, I'm going to have this, you don't have time to go through all of that. You need to be writing, my friends, not trying to find stuff in your notes, right? Unless you have like a 1-pager or 2-pager right there in front of you. That's why we were having you guys do those spice charts, because we thought it was nice and simple and straightforward. Oh, you know what? Unit 5 and 6, I forgot to add migration, but I had you guys summarize an entire reading over migration, so I'm hoping that helps.
All right, well, thanks.
Yeah. Someone else started. I didn't see who else's circle started to light up.
It was mine. I have a question over. I was reading the guidelines and restrictions under College Board, and they're talking about grammar.
Disable it. Disable Grammarly.
So I have to disable Grammarly on College Board.
No, on your Chrome or on whatever browser you're using. It should be Chrome.
Yeah. So I can't use it on Google Docs.
Correct. It has to be disabled completely.
Okay, that's fine.
It doesn't. We don't care about your grammar, guys. We care about your knowledge. We don't care about your grammar. We don't care about your spelling. That doesn't matter to us. We know it's a rough draft. We know this is not a finished, perfected paper. We want to see how much you know and how can you implement evidence. That's what we want. That's it.
Okay, cool. I have one last question.
Okay.
So how many points can I get on the pass?
I don't know. I legitimately do not know because we've never had a 10-point rubric before, and we're not going to know what is set as a general passing percentage until the middle of the AP read, really. I won't have a good idea of what they are starting to see in terms of trends of data. It's set every year during the AP read based off what kids are turning in, right? What kids have written. Now, the actual AP read is more complicated if we're talking about the real one, right? Because it's taking into account your multiple choice and your SAQ and your DBQ and your LEQs, right? So that's very different. This is going to be even more different because it's just one DBQ, but there's going to be probably multiple prompts. By the way, Mrs. Long and I are both reading at the AP read. At home doing the AP read. We won't get y'all's. They make sure we don't get our own schools. But we won't know. I might have a general idea like halfway through the AP read about the average number of points. But like I said, there have been kids that have struggled. The national average was 2.5 on the old rubric, which is only 3 points less than what the current rubric is. It's very possible that kids will struggle even just with this rubric. I think you are in a safe zone of points needed if you can get 5 or more. Even 4, honestly. It's very possible that someone could earn a 3 earning 4 points on this sucker. I can't tell you for certain that, right? I don't want you guys, Miss Wiggler said I only had to earn 4 points. No, not what I'm saying. Earn as many as you can. And do it by following the rubric and following the things we've talked about. But I can't tell you what the number of points are going to be required for a 5, for a 4, for a 3, because I don't know. College Board sets that every year, not me.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
I have a question. I'm sorry if you already said this, but did you upload a copy of the 10-point rubric to Canvas?
I thought I did.
Okay. Well, I
Hold on.
started looking for it, so
Hold on. If I did not,
so like I
might have maybe just did a link to it, but here, AP World History 2020 writing rubric. It's literally, if you do AP History modified or AP History 2020 rubric, you'll find it if you want this one.
okay.
Yeah, I'll even make this easy. I'm gonna copy this and I'm gonna paste it into the chat for you guys.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Okay, so just as a reminder, on Thursday morning, 11:30, Canvas conferences, I'll be doing a last minute pep talk, fielding answers. And again, I'm serious. If you want to prep a few possible contextualizations for different time periods, different big topics, you can send it my way. The biggest thing that you're going to have to probably tweak if you want pre-approved contextualizations is your connection sentence, depending on what the topic of your essay is, right? You might have to tweak, or what the prompt is. You might have to tweak that. But if you want to try to pre-write some contextualization paragraphs and email them to me and have me read them, I will. And I'll give you feedback. Just expect it tomorrow, because I'm still finishing DBQ grading today. I'm very proud of y'all. I really think I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity to teach you guys, and I hope you know that. And as a heads up, you might see some of your fellow classmates talk about receiving a card in the mail from me. I wrote a lot of them, and then I spilled coffee, and I'm going to have to redo, unfortunately, some of my cards. So y'all's class in particular will get your cards sometime next week. I meant to get them all out before this week, so you could have it before the AP exam. It just didn't happen. But you will be receiving a card from me in the mail before this week, hopefully before school ends. But it's just a brief a thank you for being in my class. Thank you for all of your hard work, for sticking with AP World History, that sort of thing. So expect that in the mail. I'm proud of y'all. And if I don't see you Thursday, sincerely, truly, good luck on this AP exam. I think you guys are going to knock it out of the park. I really do. But I've got you're welcome. I've got 4 minutes before I have to start 8th block. So you're welcome. I'll talk to you guys later. You guys are welcome to stay on here if you want to chat to each other, or ask each other questions. But I'm going to head out. So bye, y'all. Thank you so much. I'm going to